Welcome to this week's episode of the Mahindra Australian Volleyball Super League recap. We're actually doing round 2 and round 3 because you and I were at Uni Nationals. We thought we were going to have a lot of time. We were wrong. We did not have a lot of time to record this episode.
Got some pretty awful fixtures, so we were up early.
Yeah. There's going to be some healthy criticism to the Uni Nationals organisation. I don't think we played after 9:30 at all, my girls.
My team was a bit luckier in having later starts, but then
Well, actually,
big
no.
breaks
You
here and
always
there.
play in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I always play in the morning.
So
we
we're
could
busy all day.
we could never like get together for this episode. Anyways, what are we doing today, Al?
we are going back over round 2 and 3, covering over the results. Any interesting things that we saw mainly. Just giving you a brief rundown of how the season's shaping up, the rankings and ladders, and where we see teams fitting in over the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So we'll jump right into it, into a notable trend we saw, you noticed as well, is the WA Libero women's team. They're starting they're playing their Libero out of 6.
Not something we see often. Well, I feel like it was a trend we saw back in like 2016 to 2020 era, like that quad of volleyball. We saw it a little bit. Not going to lie, back then I wasn't really paying that much attention to the international volleyball, but now I am. So occasionally we see it. So I was on commentary for the WA, the Perth Steel and the Melbourne Vipers match on the weekend. And I did say in my commentary, like, you know, the Libero's playing in position 6. There's a few reasons I can think of. Each team that I've spoken to that has in the past done it has had different reasons for it. So I would like you, the audience, if there's any coaches out there or any Liberos, if you have different reasons, I would love to know them. You would love to know them. Not that you play a lot of defense yourself, but
I haven't had to play out of position 6 for a little while.
yeah. So my thoughts is if you're trusting your block pretty well and you're getting double blocks to everything, and the Perth Steel they have good middles. I think they can really rely on position 6 to have just the hard angle defense and have that position 5 hard angle defense, and then have the Libero sweep the backcourt. It also makes out of system a little bit easier. And just in the nature of like when you're getting those digs from the hard angles, it can be a little bit more central to the court if the Libero's in position 6. You could argue the same way for position 5. There's been some other comments about in the past some teams that I've asked about why you would play position 6 Libero, and it's hitting trends. So if they know that there's a lot of hitters that can hit back door, for example, and that is a really tough spot for a position 6 defender to defend traditionally, that can be another reason why teams can opt to have Liberos in position 6 that I've personally heard of. So having that Libero sort of be behind the shoulder of that position 1 or position 5 defender. Those are the things that I've heard. Have you heard any reasons?
It puts a little bit more stress on your 2 stick hitters because they are probably more likely going to come up against a triple block if you have a good team watching, because there is just that time to focus on where that setter is squaring up to, or the non-setter, the Libero. And on the women's side, it does remove that hitting option. Often women use the release pipe as an option.
Yeah.
The men's side, they do a pass hitter getting that second ball in 6 so they can hit a 2 ball or run that fast change of pace, but we don't necessarily see that. But it does remove the release ball.
It does
from the pipe.
It does, but it also opens up a really interesting thing that I've seen in international women's volleyball. I didn't see it on the weekend, but if you have the position 5 pass hitter, because it's not position 6, you actually run an offset pipe. Yeah. So it becomes like a back C. You've still got your front court left side. So you're running essentially a back court B. And as long as that middle's always running the slide or the C or the A, you're actually opening up another corridor down there. It can be a little bit different because it's not a traditional pipe, but I have seen, especially the Italian women's team, they do it really, really well, where they occasionally in some rotations will have either the middle who serves play 6, and then they'll have the pass hitter run that extra route. It's really interesting, open up a lot of options, but that was one trend I saw.
It's something actually that backcourt push pipe has come into play for the Melbourne Vipers men when they have flipped that court
You're right.
to have the setter operate out of 4 in those rotations just for blocking matchups.
Yeah.
Often that position 6 pass hitter has been running that back C.
Yeah.
Essentially, that push pipe.
Because otherwise the
that
blockers
side
all
of
go to the
court.
one side
Yeah.
and it becomes real hard to figure out, all right, where are we going to have space here?
Yeah.
No, I agree. If you guys saw trends, let us know. If you guys have better reasoning behind why some teams can opt for the position 6 libero, feel free to let us know. That's one thing I've always been a little bit lacking of in my coaching is like I've heard of why, but I've never opted for it because I've never really understood why, if it benefits the team I've currently got.
And sometimes you don't want to sacrifice, hey, let's try running it with this team, but it might not work out. So stick with what players are sometimes more comfortable doing.
Yeah. And we don't see it all the time, which tells me that it definitely is very situational.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear the situations that coaches feel like they would opt for that system as opposed to the traditional libero in position 5. But yeah, moving on.
We can jump into our results. So we'll jump back through the round 2. We'll summarise some of those results. We had the Queensland Pirates lose to the Adelaide Storm 3-2, but they lost within the 10-point margin, so they earned a bonus point from that. The Melbourne Vipers defeated the Canberra Heat 4-1 and earned a bonus point for winning by a greater total of 20 points. And the New South Wales Phoenix defeating the losing to the Perth Steel 4-1.
That was all the men's, by
All
the
on
way.
the men's side for round 2, sorry. No bonus points for that last game, so that was actually a very close game, even though the set percentage went that way. And on the women's side for round 2, the Queensland Pirates defeated the Adelaide Storm 3-2. Adelaide Storm earning a bonus point for being within that 10-point margin. The Melbourne Vipers defeating the Canberra Heat 4-1 and no bonus points. And the New South Wales Phoenix losing to the Perth Steel 3-2, earning a bonus point as well. So lots of bonus points were up for grabs in that round 2 sort of time. And we just had a note of best power play usage of the women's New South Wales Phoenix team, won 7 points on power play. They were really effective in that matchup, even though they lost that game.
Yeah. And the men being the Vipers for the best uses of power plays. They had statistically the highest. And keep an eye out on those as well. Like something that we won't cover today, but we have alluded to in the past is that keep an eye out for when teams elect to use their power plays. Currently, the trend that we're seeing is either when we're down and we really need it, or it's whenever I'm in my most optimal rotation. So we saw, I'll give an example, Dylan Lucchesi for the round 2 Vipers team. I think just about almost every power play landed up on him. And that's not an accident. Like that's Coach Josh Cowan doing a good job of going, all right, Dylan's serve is really on right now. And let's use that to our advantage where it happens to be in a good time in the set where it's around that 9, 10, 11 sort of point mark, uses the call, and then the Vipers sort of took off.
And he's had some great service efficiency, ace versus error rates. So it's worth the risk there. You get that increased efficiency of point that you're allowed to risk that higher error rate for the increased value of points you can win.
And they've been rewarded.
And they've been rewarded with that.
Yeah.
And then we can jump into our round 3 results. We'll begin with the women. The Adelaide Storm got a clean sweep of the New South Wales Phoenix, winning 5-0 and earning a bonus point. The Canberra Heat women beating the Queensland Pirates. Pirates earning a bonus point for losing within 10. And the Melbourne Vipers women losing to the WA Steel with actually dead equal on total points.
Not something you see often.
Yeah, but in this format, I guess it is able to happen. And our best power play usage for round 3 was definitely the Adelaide Storm women. They won 7 points on power play and were really effective to earn themselves that bonus point in a otherwise pretty close game, but they got a bit of a runaway in one of those sets. And then the men's in round 3, we have the Adelaide Storm defeating the New South Wales Phoenix 4-1, earning a bonus point. The Canberra Heat falling to the Queensland Pirates 5-0, clean sweep. Pirates earning that bonus point. And the Melbourne Vipers defeating the Perth Steel 3-2. Very close total point score in that, 80 total points to 79. Perth Steel earning that bonus point, and also being a very good power play team, they actually were more effective on power play than the Melbourne Vipers. Tom Hebden
Saw a lot of that.
saw a lot of that weight on those big moments, and he's very effective against whatever block. And we also had the Adelaide Storm being real effective on their power play.
Yeah. And that's something
match.
that's something we see regularly is like when teams are in that power play situation, they often go to their more experienced players, bigger hitters.
High efficiency, high kill efficiency, players that won't necessarily blast error but are willing to take the risk or keep them in points.
Yeah.
We can jump into our
current standings?
The current standings
Yeah.
will pop up on screen.
Yeah. But have a good look at so the competition points is actually fairly even at the moment, but you'll notice that there is not a big difference between the top 4 teams. After that, it drops off a little bit. But it's going to matter, especially in the men's. In the women's, it's a little bit more sparsely separated. But for the men's, keep an eye out on the bonus points because they're going to matter the most when moving in. And it's going to matter because going it no semi-final is easy, but you sort of want coaches will probably be looking after all right, who's our preferable matchup? Who's the matchup that we have more of an advantage over, whether it be, all right, we can have a block advantage over this team or we might have a serving advantage over this team, whatever it may be. So going back to every set matters, every bonus point really matters. And I criticized a couple teams on the first round recap behind not taking bonus points when they potentially should have taken bonus points, dropping a set here and there. Even though you've won the match 4-1, probably should have taken that last set potentially. I think it's going to matter going into the later stages.
On the men's side, the top 4 teams are all sitting on one loss. So their only distinguishing feature is their set percentage variation. So it is
it's going to be tight.
Yeah.
And the women's side is very similar. There's the Adelaide Storm have got the most bonus points. Oh, sorry, second most bonus points actually. But they're sitting on top with 22. Everyone else is 3 or 4 points below them. So it's going to be about who can collect more bonus points as the season matures and just who can collect the most sets. Every set, even though you've lost the game, is going to matter. So it's interesting here. The New South Wales Phoenix also have 2 bonus points sitting last, but only on 10. And if you can sweep a team 5-0, that's 11 points.
You're right back into the
top
bracket
4
of the ladder. So it does keep those teams that are unfortunately sitting lower at the moment. But we are at that halfway point of the season, so things can still turn around and really
running out of time.
Out of time to do it, but it will be possible because we can look at our Final 4 predictions.
Yeah,
are shaping up.
Right.
They're shaping up pretty good. I mean,
it
was probably the top 4 teams are the top 4 teams at the moment this year. So we are kind of on that mark for where we were.
Do you want to go first?
I mean, I had on the men's side the Queensland Pirates and Melbourne Vipers being in that gold medal match, and they are sitting on the top of the ladder, with my bronze being SA versus Steel, and there.
Yeah, mine was flipped. I think I had Pirates and Steel. Pirates sitting number 1, Steel sitting number 4. But again, you can't really round 3 and they're all 3 points away from each other. That is going to change severely. And then the bronze being Vipers and Adelaide. Wait, no, that's not what I had.
Ooh.
I had Queensland and Adelaide in the gold, and I had Vipers and Steel in the bronze.
Trying to edit history there.
No, it's written down. Yeah, it's written down.
On the women's side, I had Vipers and SA being my gold medal match, and they are sitting SA number 1 and Vipers number 2. SA has a bit of a lead in the competition points at the moment.
They're doing really well.
They are very well rounded, and they've had a bit of a continuation from their roster from last year.
Yeah.
And then my bronze, I had WA versus Queensland in the bronze. And WA's in 3rd, but not by much, and Queensland just behind them.
Yeah. So for the women, I had Vipers and wait a second, that's yours. I had Vipers in Queensland. I was like, I had Vipers in Queensland, which I don't think is a stretch. They're both in the top top 4. So we'll see how that goes.
I mean, once it gets to semis, it's single. It's all one game deciders. So
doesn't So and then in the bronze, I had WA and SA. Again, all Alex and I are not too bad at predicting. All of our teams definitely in the top 4, but we'll see as the season progresses. I think the men's isn't solidified, but it's certainly looking that way. Like New South Wales Phoenix they've got some work to do if they want to bridge the gap with this top 4.
Yeah.
Canberra Heat, unfortunately, I think they're looking very unlikely to make the semis. Women's is a lot more of a toss-up.
Yeah.
Like anything could happen here. The teams are a lot closer. Yeah, the New South Wales Phoenix and the Canberra Heat do have some work to do, but there's nowhere near of a gap between the competition points.
Because we've also identified a couple games to go back and watch. There's so many games on every weekend. If you can't catch them all, we've singled out some really important ones to see how teams are shaping up. For the women's, we really recommend going back and watching the recent weekend, Vipers versus WA.
Yeah.
Women, round 3 was an incredible game.
I was commentating this match because you were out of action. And like I'm new to commentary, but I really enjoy it. But the thing that happens most often is there's so many things that happen that made me speechless in that game.
Too immersed in the action that you're trying to give a play-by-play, but you're just going,
But you just can't. Shout out to both teams' libros. Like the rallies were endless, and you get to the end of every rally, especially when that game went into its depth, like 4th and 5th set. And yeah, the rallies were so long. You sort of go, what are we even talking? Like what? Like there's so many good things. So that's a really good match. Go and watch it, and then go and watch the WA women with their system of having the libero and 6, and tell us what you think. Really curious on that one. And the other one to go and watch is the Pirates men and the Adelaide Storm men from round 2. That was an interesting one for me. I watched it. I have some thoughts on it. I just think it's interesting to see those two teams battle it out, especially considering that Will Mercer was back. He used to be a Pirate. Watching those teams apply pressure to each other was a bit of a fun match to watch.
Yeah, and good to see early on in the season because that's sort of those teams shaping up and finding their rhythm to really find, because I believe Tyler Nix was missing as well.
Yeah, I believe he's no longer available. Yeah. I think he's playing professionally overseas.
Yeah, but Sam Pittarino slotted in
very, very
that
nicely.
round. I think he was very efficient.
I believe he had an unreal round. I don't have the stats here. That's something we'll do in other episodes because these are meant to be a bit shorter. We'll really go through the stats and really leading up to finals. We'll talk about trends and what players prefer to do, and we'll really break it down.
And who's been shouldering a lot of loads for teams.
Yeah,
who's most effective in what rows and stuff. We'll definitely cover.
But round 4 is coming up. Phoenix and Canberra have a bye. Yeah, both men and women's teams.
By the season, so only
2 games.
So 4 games, 2 slots.
Yeah. So the Saturday, 21st of September is the Adelaide Storm versus the Melbourne Vipers in Adelaide. You can watch that live on SBS On Demand. And on the Sunday, the 22nd of September, is the Queensland Pirates versus the Perth Steel. That's in Queensland at Iona College, and that will be on AusVolley YouTube channel. Both will be in the description. I'm very excited to see the Melbourne Vipers women play the Adelaide Storm women because that is going to be a heater, I think.
I think the Adelaide Storm women have been so effective on defense and side out and all that sort of stuff against a Vipers team that is very offensive focused.
And that's literally 1 versus 2 on the ladder. Yeah. So that's going to be a decisive game for both those teams. And then for the men's, that's 2 versus 3 for the ladder. So again, another like semi-final teaser, if you will. And then on the other game is just as important for the Queensland Pirates and the Perth Steel. For the men, that's 1v4, but like there's not a lot of difference between those two teams. And then for the women, it's that's 3v4. So like again, very, very close matches is coming up this weekend. Super excited. What are you excited for?
Yeah, I'm excited for them. They're going to be big heaters. I just really think they'll be good to watch. The SBS round, I'll be tuning in. That'll be incredible to see. And then Pirates and Steel, I want to see how they reshape up. Steel maybe looked a little shaky this weekend, not as effective as they usually are in all their positions. So they'll be trying to probably refine some form.
And 2 things. One, I want to see if the Perth Steel women run the same system with the libero being in 6 or not. That
against another team.
That will tell me whether that's a hitting matchup as opposed to a system that they've got all the time.
In response to the other team. Versus how much faith do we have in ourselves playing on our side of the court?
Yeah. And the other thing that you alluded to is like, you know, the Perth Steel did look a little bit shaky on the weekend. I was there. I saw some things that don't happen all the time. Some players that were just making more errors than usual. Something that I think people don't realise about the AVSL is that, especially for the WA team, the travel's hard. Yeah. The travel's really hard. Someone mentioned it on our Aussie Tragic mentioned it on one of our YouTube videos. You do have to give a bit of a shout out to the WA team. They travel probably easily the most out of any team. So shout out to them. It's really rough.
I've done that travel to WA.
Yeah,
it is a nightmare. Like just to have to do that. I think one year we did play on the same day as travel. Yeah, and that was a horrible decision. So like, it just made it very hard as a player to do such a long travel day, deal with time zone difference, but also just being cramped for such a long flight.
I remember to
then play in the afternoon.
No, I remember that was a brutal experience. The first time ever doing it, I think for me, like we woke up at 5:30 in the morning, got on a 6 a.m. flight, flew 4 hours, I think it is, to WA, get off, have a training, stretch the legs. But then I think the worst part about it is by the time we played, it was a 7 p.m. game, but it was daylight savings at the time. So for us, that game was starting at 10 p.m. at night. Yeah. Like that was the time zone that we were used to.
And that doesn't happen very often for us, except for a State League Grand Final.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. No, so shout out to and then obviously shout out to the teams that have to go there as well. It's just one of the things that happen. So this is on a Sunday. So my assumption is they'll travel on the Saturday and have that night in between, which is what we always want to see from teams that have to travel a lot longer because it's brutal, and it's really brutal that to fly and play the same day. Maybe some players are really good at it, and I just suck at it. You're certainly a lot better than I am at it. I'm so cranky when I have to fly and play the same day. But anyways, that's it for today's round 2 and 3 recap. We apologise for having to shovel this into one episode. We were really busy last week. Next episode will just be round 4.
Round 4.
There's only the 4 games, so we can really dive in a bit more to the games, talk about them. I'm expecting heaters on all these games. I'm really excited.
Get to that end of the season, Mark. So we'll see how teams are shaping up.
It's coming to the business end. So we'll really see teams that can deal with that pressure and teams that fold a little bit. Thanks for joining us today. We'll catch you in the next one.
Thank you very much.